So this works. Can I actually test uh, how is TIA working and such? Yeah, it's fine. It seems to be working. So that's enough for me. Uh, I I have some things to do. So today we'll be waiting like 5 minutes more, I guess. I still have I have a timer even. I'm pretty sure I can use that to say like, wow, be here in like I don't know 5 minutes. Let me see. Tools, output timer, scripts, advanced timer. Lua reset. And now let me see. The transition into that. Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. Now I need to send this. Yeah. Is that what I have to do? I just have to start the timer. Yeah. It's working. Yeah. Okay. Give me a second. I will be back. Thank you. So, uh, good evening. We, we, I am back. Uh, why do I sound so weird? Anyways, it happens is it's part of the experience. Otherwise, we can't work like that. Anyways, also no, wait. Why is the audio so low? Like, what's actually wrong? Is there a problem? Do I have to fix something? I have to fix the position of the mic. Yeah. As always, anyways, good evening. Uh, do I have to stop the script? Let me see. Where are we? Wow, we are 30 seconds late. I cannot believe it. I cannot actually believe it. I didn't even change the subject of today. It's so over, brother. So over. So incredibly over. Anyways, today, what do we have in store for today? Uh, let's say it like this. Wow, there we go. Today is rest day. That's what's today for. Not not much else. It's Sunday. We follow the traditions here, and then we say that Sunday is a day for resting the soul or something like that, basically. Also, is the microphone like doing weird crack sounds? What's going on with the mic? Anyways, good evening. Here we are. Yeah, wait. I have to change the image. Also, I think the last time I tried to do that, it changes the image itself also, even on the stream thing, on this, what is it, on the scene that is being used directly for the stream. I don't know why it does that, but yeah, I know it does that. For some reason, it does that. Anyway, uh, there are like so many things. Which one of them is the useful, correct one? This one. Do you want to open? It's so tiny. It's so tiny. Why is it so tiny? Ah, why is it so tiny? Image. Remove, transform, center of lip, reset, transform. There we go. It's tiny. It's very tiny. I think that, yeah, it's kind of hard to see even there. But the point is, here we are. Whatever. Here we are. It has been a while. Welcome. I don't know. Here, I guess it's kind of crazy to see that we get to be here another day. I wouldn't have expected really to be capable of continuing around here. I guess at some point you kind of expect stuff to take a different direction and whatnot. It's surprising to find out that, yeah, indeed, we get to have much more freedom of choice than what we can otherwise believe we have. So yeah, in days like this one, it's nice to see that we can just sit around, rest. I guess that's the real point. Yeah, today personally it has been a very good rest day. I have been having, I don't know, I want to be honest, I have been having like many issues with trying to speak. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I don't know if everyone is having like issues understanding me. If I am for some reason slurring my words and I am not realizing. I remember I saw something very funny recently that was it's not truly funny in itself, but it's like, what happens with people who get enough brain trauma damage to the brain with different types of physical damage and abuse and whatnot. Okay, the moment in which they start to lose capacity, they don't realize that they are being affected by that. So it's a progressive diminution of their mental capacities in this case, and they do not become aware of that. They cannot slowly realize that before they used to be better. It's one of those weird, I guess, phenomena that can be experienced as a human being that slow is progressively enough appear and the person cannot really identify that this is happening, and only if it suddenly becomes apparent, or not apparent, let's say, it suddenly happens and there is a big spike in motor capacities. I think that's the proper qualification. Only if that happens, the person can actually realize that yeah, they are suffering changes in their mental, in their mental functions. And in this case, I think it's very much the same thing, but in a more general sense of. And you know what's also funny about that? That yeah, in many cases, the diminution of mental capacities by default that happens throughout time with the passage of existing enough as a human being, basically. What is bound to be to become the reality for any human being who slowly, I guess, deteriorates with the continuous act of being. That is also in some way similar. And I don't know. I don't. I am slowly trying to personally understand why I can feel some decreases in stuff, but I don't know. It's still very complicated. I will assume, or not assume, more along the lines of my hypothesis actually is sadly it's so difficult to accomplish the task of properly realizing from where changes of this sort are coming, mostly because actions of this sort will be much easier to perform if there was a supporting, I guess, institution in my case, something along those lines, something that would allow the event of having to try to analyze what's being felt and whatnot a lot more easily, I guess, or yeah, with more certainty. It's complicated to be capable of becoming aware about what is happening when all the process needs to be done just from the inner perspective, and there is nothing else that can easily allow it to become finished, or to be in its entirety performed. I guess it's not about just the end, but it's also about the way in which things are done. I guess in this case, I started with something very basic. I was talking about brain trauma development and whatnot, and I don't think it's all that bad actually. I think it goes along the lines more of yeah. Funnily enough, what we can observe is that also we have these things of when we are experiencing things and we can measure them, certainty behind the actions. And that is not gained through just the thinking faculty in terms of just what we feel ourselves. It needs some other methods of being focused or of being measured so that the conclusions and all of that get to be far more certain. Or, yeah, I would even go as far as to say universally certain instead of just subjectively from a personal perspective, possibly hypothetically plausible enough to be considered somewhat accurate or somewhat appropriate to be taken as a declaration of any sort, or as a, I guess, diagnosis of any kind, you know. So I don't know. I don't think it's actually in itself something bad. That there is no such thing present. It can still be performed in this case. Some, I guess, some realizations can come without the need for any truly external institution that makes it happen or that guarantees that the event happens as long as the person is willing to do so. It's fine enough, even if it requires some bit of effort or anything like that. It's just that, to some degree, it's fine enough to see that it happens and it goes so unnoticed, so to speak. I guess in many ways, most people I will assume unconsciously always try to possess awareness about where they find themselves to be standing in terms of how much their brain is functioning and how much things are normally succeeding, continuing to happen, basically proceeding as equally as they have in previous times. And yeah, it's, I don't know. I think that it's just funny to in some way, have that alertness, possess that awareness, something along those lines, basically. But yeah, the point is, we are here, so that's already good enough. And I don't even know exactly where was I, where did I die, what I was saying before with all of this, you know. But in itself, yeah, the analysis of the thinking faculties and whatnot is, I can say, good enough. I do not think it's all that bad or that it is truly something ultimately negative. It's just part of the experience, and it's good. Anyways, the point is, here we get to be. Now, I should. I have already been speaking for like 5 minutes at the very least. So, what are we here for? Yeah, today I think I I remember trying to do stuff of this sort before. It, I think it has been quite a little while since the last occasion in which there was actually no plan behind what's happening. I think it's something fun. The idea of, yeah, you know what, we can sit here and we can try to just let things flow more naturally. I like still I find it useful the idea of being capable of pinning down where we actually want to go with things. But on the other hand, there is something very funny that happens, and that is that we do not actually get to find ourselves being outside the already dictated limits. So, at least once in a while, stuff of this sort is also good to have, you know? It's interesting. It's I personally say that it is beneficial. I don't know exactly if it is or not, but I think of it as something beneficial to try to continue having occasions like this one, even if, as always, it needs to be somewhat spatiated in time. Even then, it accomplishes its purpose, so it's more than fine. And I guess also it does work quite a bit, or quite a, yeah. I actually think that it is quite a lot in tandem with the reality that, yeah, in some cases it's sort of hard to actually be capable of deciphering which thing is the most optimal one to try to focus ourselves on. I guess it sounds somewhat pretentious. I think so. I always in this matter of, oh yeah, philosophy does many things, but it also has many problems with the way in which some methods, yeah, some methods and some courses of actions are proclaimed to be done with or done for, and still, I do not fully find it all that edificating, I guess, to go along the lines of, oh yeah, this is also one of those occasions in which, because there is no popular or no central route to find ourselves staying in, we get to then enjoy the randomness of thought and the wilderness of ideas, those things that otherwise the mind will never by itself be capable of approximating or approaching. Because in any form that things get to be in their purest state, then the thing which matters the most only becomes apparent in any other or any under sorry under any other condition. It does not happen that any concept which we try to observe becomes solid enough for us to actually try to observe it. So yeah, I think it's, once again, it is still pretentious to say something like that, but at the same time, it's supposedly true that no structure facilitates other types of thinking. I guess it's something complicated. I have to say, mostly I assume that I say that it is complicated because I myself do not find it to be the most useful way to operate in. I think, let me say like this: there is a certain reality. The the process of thinking about this stuff is incredibly complex in a way in which we still have huge differences between one another, and in which it is complicated to even define stuff properly so that we can all together continue discussing the events and the phenomena and whatnot. So, what happens in cases like this one is that I do understand the idea of, wow, you know what? We get to land on things just by pure randomness. I get the point of people being capable of doing that, but at the same time, it is still not fully, I guess, observable from a subjective, personal, or inner experience. I can only say it in relation to the idea. I cannot truly say that I get how it happens by itself from what I get to experience when I try to do it. That's what I'm trying to say. I get the words, I do not get the event that happens, as in the sensations and whatnot. It's more along the lines of, even in my case, I guess what I'm trying to admit is, yeah, I do find myself having difficulties with the idea of just being. It's in some cases I do not find it possible to not have any one particular thing in mind. I understand, I guess, concepts like meditation and whatnot, but at the same time, when you try to apply that mentality to more complex, more advanced ideas, more, once again, what philosophy tries to define as methods of analysis and whatnot, I do have quite a struggle for the idea of, can we truly deactivate so many parts of ourselves to allow such modes of analysis of any idea? I do not think it is so easy to actually arrive at conclusions when we are not focused on any new or on any particular avenue of what the idea itself is, you know? So that's also a little bit why I personally don't think it's that, I guess, I wouldn't say useful. I will go more along the lines of actionable. I I do believe it's good, but at the same time, I do have quite a hard time I don't have the capacity to fully add here to the structure being discussed. Even if I, once I understand the concept, I do not have the capacity to practice it myself so much. But, anyways, it's fine. It's it's just to slowly, at the same time, slowly the capacity to adapt to all of those things. Try to keep trying, basically, despite how much we have or not uh, reference for things of in this case, of this sort in the realm of just thinking out of stuff. Otherwise, yeah, there are other other ideas, other modes of going about actions and whatnot that do not need to be so important, so delicate, so particularly anything at all. So that's fine also. But yeah, anyways, the point is here we are. I don't know. Have been, I guess, trying to not exactly dodge, but trying to say all the other important stuff before actually allowing the more purely the rest type of discussion. Uh, it's good to do here. I don't know. I guess personally, as always, I can slowly understand a little bit more the approach that I do have with things. Personally, I have found it to be quite feasible as an action. The act of, I guess, analyzing stuff. I don't know. It has been quite a long time since the last occasion in which we had to some talk about all of that. I, as always, I try to live under the flag of philosophy, but at the same time, I am not somebody exactly who does philosophy or who centers himself on philosophical tasks. I do find myself more attracted towards the whole avenue of psychology itself. And when that happens, when I have to think and try to organize ideas around all of that, it's a little bit more complicated. As always, I understand. It's not that we're incapable of directly discussing stuff. It's just a little bit complicated to trust that we can, I guess, go towards any place without having to spend so much energy on trying to get to anywhere. Not once again, not because it is impossible to do so, but rather because it's a lot more, I guess, a lot more hard personally for me to perform properly in the action of, yeah, let me talk about this. While considering that I need to explain it properly, I struggle with explanations of any kind. So yeah, that's why. Also, I don't try to talk about all of that so much. But anyways, welcome, Torny. I hope you are well. Thank you for being here. Have a nice Sunday. But yeah, I was. What I was trying to say, or the idea that I was trying to go for when saying that was not only because it happens in terms of, oh well, yeah, this event does exist, this thing does happen. I understand that things happen, I guess, but at the same time, it's also about, you know what? I have things that I think have happened throughout enough, yeah, throughout this whole sequence of time since the last occasion in which we stood here once again, having no particular thing to go for, no. What's happening? Good evening, Jarmagon. What's no nothing particularly. I think so. Nothing exactly of importance. I guess or no. Nah, we are just. I am just saying that everything is good. I guess that's what I am trying to say. You know. That's cool. Yeah, yeah. It's fine. It's fine. To be good is very cool in itself. Yeah. I think, I don't know, the lack of appreciation for not normality, wellness, greatness. Not greatness. I think greatness is a different quality. Great things are different from good things, I can say. But yeah, the point is changes, slow changes in modes of existence and all of that. And being capable of reconciling that, I guess, personally. Stuff like that always happens. No, wait. Sorry for screaming. I hope, Dharma, you are well. I hope you are having a nice day. Sorry for forgetting the basic part of doing all of that. Welcome. Sorry. Anyways, I was saying that, yeah, I think it's I think it's fine to be good. I sadly, as always, I believe we do not spend enough time focusing on all of that. And I don't know. I just from time to time I think it is useful to have the capacity to recognize that, yeah, things are good, and I like personally to do so. I guess I don't know. Slowly, let's say like this. Slowly, it's useful to at least try to instill the same thing on others, on other people. If in any way we are going to be modifying the ways in which other people act based on just the interactions that we get to have with them, what is going to be better than to instead of, I don't know, oh yeah, you know what, the philosophical way and the modes of thinking about the stuff that we can find in the more modern methods of analyzing things in general, that ends up being incredibly heavy. I understand it, but I do not recommend having something like that. I would rather prefer that any person possesses more the capacity to actually be capable of expressing the wellness that they are experiencing in the moment than to just have to confront the entirety of reality. I do not think it's so possible. Resilience. I do not think it is possible to possess anything like resilience if we cannot have the capacity to, at a bare minimum, say, yeah, we are fine. I guess we all influence each other regardless. Yeah, yeah. I mean, unavoidably. Even if I didn't talk out that, even if we didn't talk out these things particularly, there is going to be any sort of any degree of influence being exerted onto others, even in minimal things like, oh yeah, you know what? In being a different sort of person, we have to talk out a different sort of a different set of ideas, and such that already will make the person who is willing enough to pay attention to what we are saying change a little bit the way in which they act out stuff. Okay, if I can personally take a choice in which possible things are going to happen to the other person who tries to utilize their time, considering anything that I say, I think it is better to, in my case, as I'm saying, try to spread. I don't think it's positivity. I just think it's awareness. I do not think it's a proper tag to say, oh yeah, you need to be more positive. You're being such a negative. It's just awareness. I don't know, man. I don't think, personally, there is this concept of, oh yeah, in many cases we lack words to describe things. Then we end up suffering from conditions that are related to the ways in which we feel when we lack proper methods of referring to the stuff that happens to us. It isn't related particularly to goodness or badness, it's just awareness about the stuff. And I think that's what I would prefer to sit on rather than to, oh, yeah, yeah, become, be alerted about the world. You try and spread positivity. I don't know, I guess. As I'm saying, I don't think it's positivity, I think it's awareness. But if positivity feels like an easier term to utilize when trying to talk about all of this stuff, go for it, man. What matters is that the idea itself is understood. It doesn't matter the particular word that we utilize to some degree. Any symbol can serve the function of any other symbol. The point is to be capable of understanding what we are trying to say, not to be completely precise, personally. Ah, knowledge positive, I think. Better than ignorance. Yeah, yeah. Most certainly, most certainly. I guess. I mean, I don't know. As always. Then, but is a rebuttal. Ah, but what about the cognito hazards and such stuff and the things that if you become aware about, the existential dread type of ideas and whatnot, and mind bending or reality altering realizations and whatnot, like, for example, uh, basic philosophical concept of Plato's cavern, I think it is. You know, one day we realize that our reality is false, but we cannot say it. Supposedly, not every kind of knowledge is good. I don't really know, man. I think that's to some degree. What? Why? What was there? What? What happened? Thank you. Thank you for the follow. I wasn't right. Sorry. I got distracted. My bad. But as I was saying, yeah, I think it's in itself useful to be capable of realizing stuff. So, sorry for being such a contrarian or such an argumentative break. I don't know. Anyways, I have to say something. Give me like half a second. We have this expression here, idle break. I actually should take one. Uh, so yeah, give me 10 seconds. Thank you very much. What is swap? There it is. Trying to get my ear used to your accent. Don't worry. Uh, remember, don't hear it much in Australia. Don't worry. MSL, that's the problem. You are not going to hear it unless you come to Argentina and force an Argentinian to talk to you in English, I guess. But it's fine, don't worry. It's good. No, no. I have to say, if I start to speak too fast, don't have any issue in saying, brother, can you slow down? I have a tendency towards when I forget that I have to pay attention to what I'm saying, increasing the speed. So don't worry. It's there is this. Oh yeah, it's no problem if you say no. It's actually not an issue. It's something that I do not get to control myself. So that's why it's good to be capable of relying on others. But anyways, let me. I have to. Give me a second. Thank you. Anyways, I'm back. I actually kinda forgot to say how long. It's fine. In we in 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 trust. Sorry. Anyways, I was. What's up? Where was I? I was in before. What the fuck was I? I think it was along the lines of yeah, trying to be not exactly positive, aware of stuff. Ah, yeah. Okay. I was the last thing that I said before needing to leave for a second was, and yeah, I'm trying to slowly get better at not being so argumentative, but I don't know, man. Personally, personally, I prefer quite a lot to have that possibility always of being the devil's advocate. I don't know, or I think it's bad when sometimes we forget that most thing can be argued for or against. It's let me say like this. I believe that there is some degree of incapacity for us to recognize that actually most of the stuff that we get to experience isn't fully trustable, I guess, or reliable in terms of, oh yeah, this has absolutely no flaws or no things that we have to think about so that we get to properly understand what we have in front of ourselves. So I'm just, I guess, rationalizing the action of being, as always, the guy who likes to argue about everything. But that's, yeah, that's my justification as to why it happens so much. I like to do so. I like also at the same time, I guess, personally, I find it even more funnier, more than anything else, to see people react badly when you doubt something. This idea of institutions and what is cemented as the most truthful thing, those questions that shouldn't be asked and whatnot. When things of that sort are addressed, there is always that funny, displeasing reaction, and that's I don't know. I That sounds fucking weird, actually, but yeah. Seeing that also is fun, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyways, the point is, yeah, try to say stuff, I guess. Say stuff, argue about the stuff, argue about things, about experiences and whatnot. It's useful. Uh, I mean, most of philosophy itself is about arguing about anything or about everything, but about arguing, so it works to also be capable of doing that. I mean, I don't know. It's a we can talk about that. Give me a second. Something funny that happens, and something that I personally like, but at the same time I don't fully enjoy, is how accustomed we have gotten to the reality of, okay, we need to be more argumentative about this stuff. We need to be capable of defending our own position in things, ideas. And I have certain beliefs that I can defend if I were to be asked about them. I don't know. I have seen way too many instances of people changing the courses of their life in some way almost. Just because we forget that it's, or before the event itself that brings the change forward, we have in general forgotten the need to actually be capable of realizing that, yeah, we need to be capable of defending what we believe on. So, when those moments of confrontation come, what ends up being easier is to just change for the sake of appeasing the other side. Something funny that always happens is this eternal reaction of, oh, wow, yeah, we are trying to have any kind of discussion, and how the word itself, discussion, has become such a quote unquote controversial word. Not because in itself having discussions is bad, but rather because we have allowed the idea of a discussion itself to be transformed into something much worse. A discussion is no more the the method through which any dialectical construction or any opposition of dialectical constructs gets to be resolved. It is rather, oh yeah, a discussion is only when two people get angry and scream at each other. No, man, that's not exactly a discussion. It is, it could be a much more nuanced term if we allowed ourselves to observe it from a different stance. But rather, what we do is we just stay in the first, easier definition that allows us to not be as responsible for that sort of stuff in terms of, oh yeah, I want to discuss things with anyone. I do not need to discuss stuff. And when any possible discussion might arise, I can sort of notify or make myself aware that I actually need to change. I actually need to shut up and I need to consider discussions are bad. And any kind of minimally intense conversation with someone else is in itself horrible. So yeah, I don't know. The point is that's why also I like to do so. I think it's funny because sometimes people forgets that they actually can discuss stuff. I have seen. Let me say like this. Even if it sounds somewhat negative to say, oh yeah, I like to push people around to see them react to being contradicted. It's not exactly because it's good to see them get angry. It's because it's fun to see the moment in which the person realizes, wow, I can actually argue back. It's fun to say something incredibly stupid for the sake of the other person actually reacting and actually showing that they are fucking alive and they care about the stuff that they say they think about, you know? This degree of, oh yeah, I am invested in what I do, I am invested in what I believe, I am invested in what I talk about, therefore I can participate when somebody goes against what I am proposing, goes against what I am trying to illustrate. So that's much more wonderful than to just stay in the more basic representation of, yeah, you know what, here we are, nothing actually happening, nothing important actually going on, and no need to actually discuss anything. Why? There is no real reason, but it's far easier for the both of us to say that any kind of discussion is something negative. So that's why also I I guess I like to be more often than what should be necessary. This idea of devil's advocate and whatnot. But I don't know. I guess many times it gets seen as something bad. It isn't exactly something negative. It's just something that we do not spend enough time actually observing. I think it feels much more negative than what it actually is. Once again, through the modifications that the culture has imposed onto it and whatnot. I don't think it's all that bad, but I do think it's quite funny to see it happen and to find out that, yeah, we have things that we actually care about, that we are willing to defend, but we do not do so out of the, I guess, fear of the consequences, of the possible consequences, and such. But yeah, anyways, that's, I guess, further or more, an even more complex rationalization of the same phenomena. I wouldn't say, yeah, I wouldn't say that it's ultra good to actually try to argue about everything, as always. To some degree, people like Descartes, they became fucking crazy. Why? Because you need to have certainty about some degree of stuff before you actually continue trying to argue about the world. I guess, I don't know. I guess it's funny, anyways. That's why also to some degree it's done. If it wasn't funny, it wouldn't be done at all. I don't know, man. I think sometimes we forget that side. Once again, we have the possibility of saying stuff. We have the possibility of feeling good about what we say. Therefore, it should be a reality that we actually try to go towards things that interest us instead of staying just in that realm of, oh wow, yeah, we are obligated to talk about certain stuff and nothing else matters because they are outside the obligations. I don't know, man. I think it's funny sometimes to, once again, maybe even oppose what seems to be so much of a necessity. As long as we have so much vary time, or what could we even consider death time, between the different obligations that we do possess that rule our existence. I don't know exactly if it is all that useful to not have soy in or during those dead hours of our existence, you know? And I guess, yeah, rather than we can still have soy, I don't know. The easiest method is, or the easiest analogy is always we can just be pressing a button to release dopamine and serotonin and such chemicals. Instead of doing that, which might actually fry brains with enough repetition, I think it's better to do so with other stuff that also assists everywhere else, I guess. You know, slowly trying to wave through enough ideas, slowly try to explore stuff sufficiently enough so that we can find ourselves slowly becoming more capable of also dealing with reality. Once again, to some degree, funnily enough, discussions are always going to happen at some point or another in anyone's life, so it's sort of meaningless to try to run so much from them. Or it's not even meaningless, pointless, it's counterproductive. That's the proper definition. It's utterly counterproductive to try to run away so much from something that is bound to happen in anyone's existence. We even lower our capacity to deal with something that is bound to be. It's it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I am not going to think about that because I don't want to worry. It's going to happen. We are not in an era in which we can just forget about that because we all have attained immortality. No, it's necessary to think out some sort of stuff. And yeah, in this case, I guess discussions is what I'm trying to say are also good to be capable of pointing at, I guess. But yeah, that's my point. Thank you. Now let me think something. And I don't know. Anyways, trying to go towards somewhere else. I think it's funny to see as always that yeah, we have so many things of that sort that happen and that just never go visit. I haven't, as always, I have been thinking a lot. I think it's funny to do so, and yeah, I have been slowly getting to more conclusions. I don't know. It's personally I always struggle quite a lot with that whole side of reality. It's always surprising to see how much we can actually conclude about the world. It's sort of mesmerizing the realization that we actually have many, many things to think about and many ideas that we can de- yeah, keep on developing besides the basic level of what everyone else has already said, so to speak. And to some degree, it's in itself good to have that capacity, but at the same time, it's also always another sort of doubt or inner discussion. And how much of the things that are continuously being thought about and such are actually proper statements and whatnot? How many of those are in any way through correct and whatnot? How many of those things are actually moving in a good direction instead of just being relegated to a more and more abstract realm of, oh yeah, I'm telling myself these stories about events that do happen outside, but which I am personally interpreting. And at some point, I will find out that, I don't know, after maybe 10 more years of my own existence, I have become so wrapped up in my own thoughts that everything else fits only within my own narrative and not much more. It's always, I guess, a useful thing to try and continuously observe how much of what I guess personally, I get to conclude correlates or is associated with the rest of the world, but at the same time, once again, sadly, also a part of that is mediated by many other things that do not get in any other way discussed. I think sadly, it's always something that I say. It seems to be that we don't really have that many developments in many areas of what seem to be utterly finished sciences and whatnot. It's somehow surprising to see that, yeah, there are many conclusions that we can personally reach that seem to have never been at all discussed. And I don't know, man. I do want to talk a little bit about some stuff, but at the same time, just like any other human being, I fear being fucking killed, you know? I don't want to say something that seems to be simple enough, but at the same time, that just because of how different it is from the already existing narrative, it becomes utterly dangerous. I don't know. I guess in that sense, yeah, I can probably say it's mostly subjective weight of conceiving the rest of reality. The world itself is not so dangerous in many cases, as always. We have the capacity to talk about this stuff as long as we do it with enough respect and with enough interest and once again, awareness about what we're actually talking about, how is the other person reacting, how things are moving and whatnot. It's actually quite possible to discuss almost everything. And I can accept that, yeah, it's something that requires more than anything else patience. But I don't know. My excuse is I am supposedly young, so yeah. Being young is in some way being pressured by your own lack of awareness about how much time does not actually matter so much, or how much time is not such an issue. There is more than enough time to do many things, and it's not so necessary to feel so pressured to talk about anything. And in this case, more than anything else, because it's much better to do so with enough calmness so that we can reach slowly the proper consequences rather than to rush stuff for the sake of finishing as most of what we can see is necessary to do and not really get any of the good consequences, just accelerate processes and such, you know? That's also why I think it's nice to actually try to slowly move towards more discussions, but at the same time, it is still somewhat risky. I mean, I don't know. Personally, yeah. Let me say it like this. Personally, also that's something that also surprises me. Sorry, is the realization that sadly, in many cases, no matter how much time we spend thinking out possible scenarios, it it can be utterly surprising to see how people react to certain discussions, certain topics, and whatnot. It's sometimes I I don't even know if it is actually possible to be capable of always estimating properly stuff without having to sacrifice many other capacities in the long run, or without having to make big sacrifices more than anything else for the sake of, oh yeah, I can predict with 90% certainty how somebody is going to react if I say certain things and whatnot. I think it is possible, but at the same time, I think it is way too much of an investment. And the point is, because sometimes it does happen that I can try to predict, oh yeah, you know what? How are you feeling? The eternal, most obvious question, how are you feeling? Answer, expected answer is always, I'm good. The moment in which somebody says something outside of, how are you feeling? I'm good. The moment in which they say, oh yeah, I'm doing incredibly well. The moment in which they say, you know what, I want to fucking kill myself. when those answers come, it's somewhat complicated to react. We already have many learned behaviors and ways in which we try to predict and try to assimilate that things are going to happen and are bound to happen. And yeah, it's in that same sense that it happens that some questions I believe the reactions are going to be of some sort, and I don't know. At this point in time, I find it surprising to see so much that I guess so many, yeah, we all possess so many sensibilities. It's somewhat surprising to see that. You wouldn't, I guess, you let a children think out the world by themselves, and you wouldn't assume that, or the children, I guess, wouldn't reach the conclusion that everybody is going to have so many struggles in terms of what is possible to actually talk about and what not, and what are the things that we can discuss and be capable of talking about without feeling hard. That everybody has a list of things that annoys them a lot, and that everybody lives with many sensibilities and things that move them in incredibly surprising ways. Not everybody has them. Adults, we supposedly are adults. To some degree, we all believe at some point we all accept that we are adults. So it's surprising to see that in that side, it is that I am saying it's incredibly astounding to confront that. Yeah, out of nowhere, here we are having to work around saying directly something because you know what? I might get hurt by it. I might get angry if I say it directly. I might not enjoy the conclusion if it is in direct opposition of what I think. I might flip off, or I might what's the expression? Go crazy, have a moment of neurotic rage just because somebody said something that they didn't like. And I don't know, man. I understand it, but at the same time, I think it's still surprising to see that so much, so much for being an adult once again. But anyways, it's fun. At the very least, even if those problems exist, as I say, it's still doable. It's still something that we can slowly move towards, and we can slowly try to talk out the stuff, and we can slowly get over certain things and whatnot. So it's not all that much suffering. It's just being impatient. That's what it is. But how to be a person if it is not by being impatient, I guess. How to accomplish stuff is if to some degree we have so many demonstrations that when we put ourselves to the task, we can perform far more than what we can actually think about. Not because we are truly divine beings, but rather just because efforts, when they are real, give many results. And we just don't like to think about having to do stuff. It's better to please ourselves with, oh yeah. You know what? This is not a problem that I have to solve. This is something that can take, I guess, 20 years or so. Instead, this can be not something that I can solve in a week. This has to be a problem that I need to carry with myself for the rest of the year, for the remainder of this incredibly already long year. I don't know, man. But anyways, the point is it's fine. Slowly we get to reach conclusions, so that's fine. And also something that I finally not finally understood, but I finally realized, I guess, like at the very end of what I was saying. At the same time, though, unavoidably, what happens is, and you know what, we can't actually solve the way in which the other person perceives some stuff. So that's why we needed to have so much patience. We need to be so patient with stuff because it's not about me. It's about also the other side. There's this otherness that we can utilize to refer to the rest of the world. This alter that I find out there that doesn't react in the same way in which I do, and which I also supposedly I need to comprehend in order to affect more properly. So it's just, I guess, being too involved in the self rather than any other idea. But it's it's part of being, I guess. I don't know. I guess philosophical thinking in itself is something already very selfish. I Yeah, I have actually been thinking about that a lot, and I do think at least the most modern way of approaching philosophy has become quite self-centered. Sadly, what has survived, I guess, let's say like this, without directly naming it, but alluding to it, after all the conflicts that have existed within and due to philosophy, what has remained as the most acceptable methods of philosophy are utterly self centered and self oriented modes of performing any mental action, I guess, any thought processing of sorts. So I do believe it certainly is bound to be like that, but at the same time, it's not, as always, it's not something incomprehensible. It's just in this case here, it's just something that comes with the territory, I guess. It's just like if we tried to go visit somewhere like Egypt nowadays. Unavoidably, there are going to be ruins. We are not going to find such a big, wonderful palace of stuff. We have, more than anything else, old constructions, old constructs, and already made, created, and given ideas. Not so much to see or to do ourselves there. We are just exploring a museum of concepts, sadly. But I don't know, I guess, yeah, personally, I'm still trying to mention it in a more proper way. I do believe it can be said in some way, in some correct way, in some acceptable manner, that we are still capable of reaching conclusions of any sort and finding ideas of any kind and developing new thoughts of any type without as much of a problem as we think it is. Even nowadays, even in current times and whatnot, I think sadly what happens is I no, yeah, I still don't fully know exactly from which side it comes. I can only trace many possible instances from what makes this happen. I am still having a difficult time identifying the most certain one, but I think, yeah, personally, I do love quite a lot more the multiplicity of stuff rather than just the singular explanation for any kind of phenomena, at least of this sort. it's kind of hard to explain, for example, why we had the first World War. If we say, oh yeah, somebody killed the Archduke Ferdinand or something like that, it's it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Same thing happens here. I think people can move from the way in which we actually think out philosophy, and we can have people say good things on this place, but we need to find still a way to tackle the utmost biggest question of them all head on without being destroyed in the process. I guess that would be the most optimal way of saying it. Yeah. After all, I think yeah, it has been quite a while since in itself inside of philosophy and anything of actual importance has been stated. I guess I don't know. Also, I mean, we are not here to actually talk only about philosophy because I don't think it's way too complicated. In itself, as always, there are way too many phenomena existing and coming all together to create, to synthesize one principal explanation for things. Sadly, we're having way too many problems with other stuff, and we're having way too many other contributions from many other fields interfering with the stuff, in this case, related to philosophy. I guess, and I mean, it doesn't just happen inside of philosophy. Sadly, something wonderful is to see how many of the sciences of the actual era, of the present era, are all in discussion with one another, trying to disseminate and properly attribute or segregate the different ideas and fields amongst themselves. We are in the 21st century, and somehow we still have incredibly underdeveloped sciences, so we still have way too many issues trying to actually know which phenomena or which situation, which, yeah, which observable phenomena belongs to which particular science. So we have way too many things trying to be in conversation with one another, trying to understand, okay, is this thing actually of my dominion or of this other one? Can we actually talk about politics inside of philosophy itself, or has politics become enough of a science for it to stand on its own two legs? Can we utilize inside of, okay, let's assume we have politics as their own thing. Therefore, can we talk about sociological things within the realm of politics? Are we talking about manipulation inside of politics and arguments? But isn't modes of arguments, argumentative methods, and modes of analysis, as well as modes of the construction of the arguments that we are being presented with, part of fields like philosophy, like linguistics? I don't know, man. I think it's to some degree it's getting overly complicated to actually know where we are standing with all of that stuff. But at the same time, it's fine. I don't think it's all that bad. I think it's just part of the process. And if it has to take a while, I will rather have it take a while than to make it go faster for the sake of making it feel like we solved anything without actually getting to solve any actual issue that does affect the way in which we live. So yeah, I mean, I said that I am somebody impatient, but at the same time, I have this many concessions of this same sort. appear in so many other areas of similar kinds. It's fine, anyways. The point is, at least, to be capable of admitting to them, I guess. But yeah, give me give me a second. I don't know. I'm also trying to, as I said, this is not just philosophy. This is also a lot about psychology and whatnot. I have been also trying to think about. I personally have to accept that I don't know. I find this to be quite an enigmatic field. That of the self perceptions that we have, the placebo effects that we possess, the ways in which the convictions that we possess, and the modes of understanding reality from within the subjective realm of our own experience of it affect the rest of the world. It seems to be quite surprising. I mean, yeah, I only keep on finding more and more stuff of that sort that seems to confirm that we are incredibly subjective. And I don't know, we seem to be so oriented towards everything but subjectivity that it's still amazing to see actually how much all of that is still equally as or even more present than in previous eras. I guess that's the proper expression. And I don't think it's bad in itself. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's weird to see that. I wouldn't have expected that yeah, as always, or tying it with what I just said, we have so many developments in this stuff relating to psychology, but biological neurology, psychological neurology. We have many fields that try to answer the same type of question. And we seem to have become so capable of somehow stating, oh, yeah, the human animal isn't as subjective. And I don't know, brother. What I find out when I actually go around, live life, is that, I don't know, sometimes even the way in which we refer to ourselves, the way in which we conceive stuff, affects the way in which everything else around us happens. It's this weird stuff that we cannot still properly refer to, the way in which just our own given notions and our preconceptions alter the way in which phenomena happens. It cannot be claimed to be aura, it cannot be claimed to be any kind of particular field of our existence, but it certainly is something that happens, even if we don't actually like to mention it, even if it sounds weird to say. I don't know, man. I think that's why I was, I remember very much in correlation with this one, it comes also that the thought about why somehow it seems to be so normal for the present. Yeah, let me say it like this. Something funny that has happened is to realize that the shaman, the shamanic figure and whatnot, that person that was bound to the spiritual realm in ancient times in societies has now transformed and resignified itself into the psychologist. I think more than anything else, it is in the figure of the psychoanalyst. Most certainly, I I find it to be a proper truth or a proper statement that yeah, psychoanalysis itself is quite a different practice from just psychology. But even then, even if they try to make it pass as something different, man, I don't know. Even if they try to make it pass as something different, when you are checking what happens inside of psychology, it's very much the same thing, man. It's very much this a very similar method, or through different justifications, the same sort of actions that somebody in the realm of psychoanalysis partakes in, the same actions that a psychoanalyst performs are what a psychologist do. The only difference is that one of them can properly accept what they are, the other one struggles with the acceptance of their own existence in itself, I guess. And I don't know. I don't think it's bad. I just think that yeah, it's weird, and I think it's funny. Once again, it's funny to see that the shaman has reappeared in this particular figure. This whole discussion of, oh yeah, God is dead. Say that this guy called Nietzsche that somebody might have heard of here, and actually, I don't think so, man. I think we have just converted God into something different, actually. But anyways, I don't know. I still don't know. So much time analyzing stuff, and it is still as wonderful to see how little it is possible to understand the things. I guess it's as always. It feels like once we find an answer for a deep question, only even more complicated, more highly complex questions arise, and somehow it becomes our reality that, yeah, we actually have to fight so hard to try and continue answering as many of those complicated questions as we can. I think it's surprising to see that we have so many things to try and talk out, try and resolve, try and properly deal with. It shouldn't be the norm that we will have so many deep things to think about. I think let me say like this. I think that's something that I would have expected quite a lot more. Was when I was young, I had this idea of, oh yeah, we are in a world in which everything has already been constructed. Many certainties have already been dictated about this world, and we have many truths that already make a reality be one particular thing. I am not saying that they don't exist. I'm not saying that, but I am going towards. I don't think that what we have counts in any way as actually many. We have in terms of numbers, in terms of what would be quantities. We have huge quantities of truths, but it is nowhere near enough for us to understand the wholeness of the world, the entirety of reality, a sufficient enough amount of reality for us to not have to worry about having to understand the reality itself by ourselves. I think something funny that has happened has been the the way in which we nowadays consider, discuss, and approach stuff of this sort of, oh yeah, you know what, we have all of these questions, we have all of these issues, all of these ideas that we try to talk about, that we try to find ourselves worried about in any way. And they are not actually all that bad. They are not in themselves really bad. But what happens is still, funnily enough, we we haven't really gotten to have nothing to deal with. The person who tries to will find themselves incredibly laid of doubts. The world is still very much full of things to try and keep on discussing, things to try and keep on analyzing. And once again, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's in any way something negative. It's just surprising enough. It's just astounding enough to see, to realize, to keep on observing that, yeah, we actually have so much to still see for ourselves. It's the easiest claim, as always, is, or the first initial claim can always be, you know what, it's sort of tiresome to see, to find out, to experience a world in which so many of our actions still need to be fully explained. We have to keep on struggling quite a lot, actually, to be capable of reaching conclusions of any sort. It's what I was saying before was I haven't promised something different, man. I don't think it's all that useful in itself to try to get angry about that. I don't think it's, yeah, it's a proper action to actually take. The one of, yeah, you know what? Let's actually get enraged because what I was promised doesn't correlate with what I get. I just think that it's funny. It's funny that we think we have the whole world solved. We try to sell such an illusion, and the reality, what we find out once we live our once we keep living our lives is actually something quite different. Most certainly quite different. And I guess it's also part of that. Trying to keep on, to some degree, instigating and discussing all of those things and making it aware that, yeah, we say we have certainties, we say we have truths, we say we have stuff of any sort. Does it actually happen? Does it actually show itself to be, yeah, an unavoidable reality of this world? Is it actually all that real that we don't have anything to worry ourselves about? We don't have anything to find ourselves dealing with? Or are we actually struggling quite a lot? I, once again, I think most of us, most of the things that we try to talk about, most of the stuff that we, most of the sciences, I guess, that we have already developed are still incredibly green, are still incredibly. I don't think undercooked is the proper expression, but are still very unexplored, let's say like that. So I don't know. I don't think it's in itself all that bad. It's just, once again, surprising. You would expect that such an ancient civilization will have done much more than what we have actually accomplished, at least thus far, you know? We try to take so much pride on what we get. Where do we get to stand on? How many people have come before us and was not that? It's sort of surprising once we have to actually look back and realize, yeah, you know what? We we don't have actually that many conclusions. That's also personally why I have such an issue with this stuff of, oh yeah, yeah, sciences in themselves are so developed. We have so many certainties about this stuff. We have so much discoveries. We have so much soap already done, let's say. And the moment in which we try to see if this is true, what happens is, oh wow, we have spent maybe 12, 20 of our best thinkers of any area that you want to talk about. We have made them waste their whole lives on very similar questions that end up just leading to an overarching, minimally different conclusion. In the end, we are all trying to answer the same question from different perspectives. Can we actually say that it does not seem to be possible to accept that we are at present? We are not getting all that far in what we do and what we say and what we try to mention ourselves as authorities in or anything like that. I don't know. Once again, I just think it's to some degree weird that we haven't actually talked about all of those things. They seem to be so fundamental to the way in which, to the ways, plural, in which we live, that you would expect more and more people to be capable of actually recognizing, yeah, you know what? It's incredibly tiresome to have all of these things happening. It's incredibly tiresome to have all of these things affecting us. Are they actually affecting us in any way? Yes or no? I don't know, man. It seems to be the case that, yeah, we're actually quite surrounded by things which modify our lives without us having as much awareness of them as we can say or as what we can actually accept we have. So that's why also it's weird, I don't know. Sciences are weird. We are in a weird position. That's what I'm trying to say. So much for these generalistic statements that don't reflect reality, I guess. Anyways, let me take a break. Thank you. I I don't know how much it has been since the last one, but yeah, I almost 1 hour, so that's fine. But yeah, let me one second. Thank you very much. Uh, Hello. What's up? I should. I think I should actually. Yeah, yeah. Give me a second. I should actually check the audio. I I think it's just as a good measurement. How is it actually? Is everything fine? I hope. I think that one of the things I fear is having to find out that out of nowhere the audio has become incredibly bad. I think, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. Let me. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's working. But hello, welcome back. We are back. I wanted to say, I remember something very funny that happened. Was I was the other day testing this thing of how the different microphones that I have sound, and I found myself. I think it was the third mic that I got. I was testing that one compared to this one, this present one that I have, and I actually never contrasted before how much of a difference there was. And dear God, this one is so much better compared to the last one that I had. It's utterly surprising to see that. And yeah, I also to some degree have this. It's once again, it makes sense. It's not actually completely irrational. It makes sense why it is there. This fear of wow. What if one day we find ourselves back to that utterly horrible quality of audio, you know? Mostly also something that I have to admit is also because sadly Twitch itself, I cannot really explain why, but there is a thing that happens when you watch streams at 160p pixels of resolution, I think it is. That is also the audio quality gets lowered. Imagine if we have to go back to that era in which we were only at 160p, things weren't working, so much pain, so much actual struggle for something that doesn't, it isn't worth it. But yeah, it's funny anyways. It's still funny as hell to think about it in this sense of wow, yeah, you know what? Here we are. Here we find ourselves having the possibility of enjoying and the possibility of actually having a nice time with all of this. It's that's also why, as I was saying, I think I don't know, an hour or so ago, this idea of trying to point towards those nice things that we might have never before tried to gain awareness about. It's not so much about the positive stuff itself. There are way too many positive as equally as negative things that we have never before gained awareness of. It's what matters is trying to actually see it and trying to actually accept it as such. I don't think it's so much just about, oh yeah, we have these problems and we have these things not working and we have these parts of life not moving on to anything else. It's not so much that. It's far more about, yeah, you know what? We have so much going on. I think it's nice when we actually try to accept some things that are also part of our experience, which we, I guess, out of the automation of living, let's call it like that, that we have gotten accustomed to just not trying at all to think about why stuff happens in any way. It's, at least personally, I say it is surprising to see. I don't know. I think life is quite astounding in many ways. And that is just one of them, you know? Just one more of those surprising sides of being alive, I guess. So yeah, I don't know, man. The point is, the point is actually things are worth, so I can be happy with that. I don't know. I, as just as I said earlier, if I don't try to talk out this stuff right now, I will probably most certainly forget about doing so later on. So let's just continue getting rid of stuff. There is, yeah, let me, first and foremost, there is a certain reason as to why I think it is to some degree useful. Based on what I understand, it seems to be actually quite certainly true that one of the main mechanisms that exists and lies within ourselves is this idea of okay, we slowly keep developing ourselves and we slowly keep on moving towards higher stratas or stages of development in any field. But what also needs to be performed is the action of going through all the different stages of the ideas that we have in order to finally slowly reach the highest ones possible and the highest ones that we should actually be caring about. So, if we want to do that, if we want to be capable of fully reaching our utmost potential, it needs to be done. And it needs to actually happen that we explore everything. It's not something that we just say here. It's something that happens and that allows things to move to a better stage of development. In any way, then that is why I do also believe it is necessary to do stuff of this sort. I don't know. I mean, it does have a supposed justification. It seems to lie within the conscious and unconscious mind. Okay, in the unconscious mind, something happens of the quality of okay, or of the effects of. Sorry, we have things that we know we should think about. We have a certain set of things that we should try to think about, and we know about them, even if just unconsciously. What happens is, if we do not actually consciously think about the stuff that we unconsciously know we should be thinking about, more and more of those things that we possess awareness to know enough that we need to think about it, but not enough awareness to realize that we should truly be utilizing our time on thinking about it, at some point it becomes so much of a big list that the mere act of discriminating and being capable of categorizing things amongst one another in order to fully understand what matters the most to talk about becomes actually impossible to perform. So that's also, in this case, I guess it's, I don't know if it is a group effort. I don't think it is the proper word, group effort. It's something more along the lines of an actual interest of ours to do so instead of just pullulating in all the things that we have never truly mentioned. It's actually much better to be capable of identifying what matters than moving to other stuff of other sorts that should be then properly discussed, you know? Also, personally, you want another reason for why we're doing this? Personally, because it is also wonderful to try to continuously practice that capacity of not delving on anything way too long. It's quite annoying. I think so. As always, there is this idea of you should treat the things that you do as if you were doing them for yourself. Therefore, what I want is not somebody who when I decide to finally check them out, be discussing the most absolutely complex thing that I can't ever follow up. I will need to spend years of my life understanding what they are talking about. I don't want that. I don't like that, and I don't need that also. So I can personally, probably most certainly, try to train myself in order to avoid stuff of that sort and to be capable of also not having those same issues arise in cases like this one. Because, like it or not, it is still part of a conscious choice taken somewhere along the process of, yeah, you know what, I have these things that I say I care about, I have these things that I say I want to do and whatnot. And I don't know, man. It's it's certainly something, but I just don't know exactly how much of a thing in itself it is, or how much of a thing I make it to be. I guess that's also part of the eternal discussion, but that's part of being here. How much we end up spending trying to think about things and trying to make them make sense in any way. Just how things work around here. And I guess anyways, it's fine. I mean, it is still embedded on the message. Things at the very least work, even if not in the most optimal way they work. So that's more than nice enough, at least for now, you know. Let's say like this, it even opens up the possibility to the promise of, okay, we have it already existing right now. That's sufficient. Why? Because we can make it work better in the future. Since we have already the thing in itself exist, we don't have to waste so much of ourselves making it become something. First and foremost, it already is. We just need to spend our time making it work better, allowing it to express itself in its purest form. And I don't know, man. It sounds far much nicer as a promise of sorts rather than anything else of that same line, you know? But, anyways, I don't know. Uh, give me, give me a second. I think something also very interesting to see is actually how much or how little we had to actually care about this stuff. In many ways, it's always that same thing. What I was talking about earlier. We have many assumed certainties. We once we find ourselves living in reality, it's quite surprising to see that we don't possess as many actual certainties out the world. It's astounding to see that, yeah, we're not so sure about so much stuff, we're not so sure about so many of the things that we try to utilize our time on. And I don't know, as always, it's not something that doesn't make sense. Most people need to spend quite a huge amount of their time thinking out the stuff that they like and what's not. Being, or at least trying, I don't know if being capable of trying to make sense out of what they see, what they experience, what they go through, and what not. Okay, that is in itself true enough. But also, what happens along those lines is I have to actually see for itself what is it that I like, and sometimes I have to accept that I might like something that the rest of the world doesn't actually like. That I am talking out things. I am thinking out stuff that would make me myself end up quite hard. And I don't know. I think it's funny to see that. I think it's surprising to see how much of a fear the average person possesses about stuff along the lines of censorship and whatnot. It's surprising to see. I don't even exactly know from which place it comes. I think, yeah, I haven't even really thought about it in that way. I think it's surprising to find out how much of a myth it is. The myth of the fear about censorship and whatnot within us, within ourselves and whatnot. It's true, yeah, unavoidably. We can experience censorship and we can go through bad stuff and whatnot, but at the same time, sadly, it isn't fully true. It isn't completely real that we live in such a dangerous world in which it is impossible to have opinions of our own or things that we can truly stand behind or stand by. You know, it's in that same sense that I also think it's funny. It's always funny to try and talk about all of this stuff. Not because it is actually controversial, but because it seems to be in some way controversial. It isn't really all that crazy. In some way, something that I mean, yeah, it's actually quite sad. Philosophy isn't really all that controversial. It just tries to go towards things that seem to be, amongst the average person, dangerous to at all mention, but which we can all think about in different ways, and which we can all try to find ourselves dealing with at different stages of our life. And somehow, philosophy makes itself look like such a complicated science, profession, action, part of the life of anybody, when in reality it's just another side of the dice that tries to deal with the act of being and not much else. I guess that's what I'm trying to aim at. If we need a particular name or something like that, you know? But, anyways, I don't know, man. I think that it's just fine. Hmm. That's my final conclusion. It's fine. For today, I can say it's fine. It's it's always good, even if it doesn't feel like the uttermost, absolutely most complete conclusion of any sort. It's fine. It's always fine. As I was saying before, in many cases, it's just the acceptance for that impatience that makes it look like a good thing. It's actually good sometimes to not reach conclusions. Like I have slowly come to accept that, yeah, sometimes it's even necessary to not reach any kind of conclusion about what we are thinking. What is it that we find ourselves striving to fully arrive at a conclusion on? It's good sometimes, or not sometimes. In many cases, it's nice to just let it. I guess the term should be cool to be marinate, keep on cooking. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, modernity or current times offer quite a handful of similar definitions for the same thing. But yeah, the idea is just let stuff continue being thought about. At some point, everything will make as much sense as it can, and at some point, it will be enough. That's when it's finally going to be as usual. I don't know. I truly don't know. Anyways, I guess I don't know. Do I have anything else to say? I think that I don't really have that much more to add. As always, it was a very good day, but at the same time, it's kind of counterproductive to actually push so hard for so much more. This is already good enough. So sometimes it's also about conceding when it's necessary. So yeah, thanks for being here. but it's not so possible, at least today, for me, to keep on pushing for another hour. Today, this is where we are living in that. I mean, we already talked about enough things, so it was already sufficient enough, also. But yes, thanks for everything. Thanks for watching. Thanks for lurking. Thanks for watching the world. It has been quite a long time since the last time that I actually acknowledged those watchers. It's quite a sad reality, but yeah, thank you for everything. It was a very good day. And yeah, have a nice rest of your day. Have a nice rest of your life. That's what actually matters. As always, it doesn't matter if we actually get to see ourselves or not. Next time, what matters is that you have a good life. Work on that. Then everything else will be good. Thank you very much. And yeah, until next time. Probably tomorrow. But yeah, thank you and goodbye.